Welcome to Brain Wellness, the podcast. I'm your host, Mandy NP. Each episode will bring you a new topic or interview related to brain health and wellness as part of my mission to help you on the path to a healthier, happier brain. So, let's get started. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Brain Wellness, the podcast. My guest today is Christine Trimpe. Christine is an award-winning author, speaker, joy seeker, and weight loss warrior. Her stories and coaching inspire, educate, and encourage women to shed the extra weight they've been carrying literally and figuratively to finally step into the joy they deserve. Thank you so much for being here today, Christine.
Mandy, thank you for having me. I'm overjoyed to be here, of course.
Yeah, so we connected a little bit before the show, so I know we've got some really good topics to cover today. My
Yes.
first question I always like to ask people though is to kind of get a little bit of background. What's your story? How'd you get to where you are today?
Yes. Well, I became a joy seeker and a weight loss warrior because of my 30-year history of living in obesity. And eventually, before I stepped into this freedom of health and wellness, I was morbidly obese. And and I had my turning point moment on the side of a mountain in the Rocky Mountain National Park, trying to go up a path that my husband had planned out for us to go see Nymph Lake. And I ended up quitting that trail like halfway up, just gasping for air. I could not go another step further because not only was I carrying 100 extra pounds of body fat on me, but I was also carrying a lot of emotional baggage. And just my life was just, I was not a happy person, not a joy-filled person. And I just remember sitting down on that stump and coming to the realization that almost at the age of 50 at that point, that I could not continue to go on with this. And it was in that moment that I realized that that was my turning point moment, because I did come home from that trip and I finally did I finally did the thing. First thing I did was called for a sleep study, which I'd been putting off for years because I knew I would be coming home with a CPAP machine and that just sounded miserable to me. But sure enough, I was diagnosed with obstructive sleep apnea, most likely due to my obesity, and came home with that CPAP machine. And I do attribute that medical intervention to the very first step that helped me get on this healing journey. So that's my story. 30 years of wandering aimlessly, what I call the my weary weight loss days, wandering in the desert, just trying all the things. I can't even tell you, Mandy, how many times I joined Weight Watchers. I did, the medical weight loss center. One time I even did a liquid protein shake diet for 10 months, which was horrible. The worst experience I ever had. It was soul crushing when I started regaining the weight, which I can tell you more about how that happened later in the conversation. But that's basically my starting point. I mean, that's sitting on the side of that mountain. I'm a mountain girl. I love mountains, and I was so disappointed that I couldn't climb. And so I just knew that something had to change in my life.
Yeah, I think I know that hike because I was just in Rocky Mountain National Park a couple of years ago with my kids, and we were going to
Amazing.
that lake. So I think I know that hike
Yes,
exactly.
it's at the Bear Lake stop.
Yeah, yep.
Yes,
And
yes.
yeah, I'm a hiker as well, and I have definitely had times where my weight has fluctuated over the years with stress. And
Okay.
there are times when those hikes are a little bit more difficult than others, when you do
Right.
have both the physical and the emotional baggage along with it. Because as you mentioned too, a lot of times when we have weight things, there's some underlying emotional stuff with that.
Oh, yes. I always tell my coaching clients, like the weight loss is a really nice side benefit, but for my community, we're really digging in on the whole holistic health, the body, mind, and the spiritual health. And I always warn them, I'm like, the emotional part of this journey is going to be the most difficult. It will be the hardest thing. One of the hardest things you ever do in your life is looking back and figuring out, how did I get here in the first place anyhow? It's a lot of very important, deep heart work that has to happen.
Hmm, hmm. And that's just one connection that we have with talking about diet today and our brains, because there's a huge undertone with when we have any kind of emotional instability, it affects our entire body. A lot of
Yes.
times in medicine, we think that everything is a silo and everything has its own little place, but it's all interconnected. So when we have emotional troubles, we're going to have troubles elsewhere in our body, such as with nutrition, not getting either enough or too many calories or the right kinds of calories, which is, I know you talk a lot about ketogenic. So going
Mhm.
ketogenic in the brain, and that's
Yes.
a whole nother topic that we can get onto a little bit later.
Yes.
But
Yes.
just I guess what are those first changes that we need to make a change in our brain that will affect the rest of our health, including our weight?
I needed personally, and the way I coach my clients is I needed some new education. It's
Mhm.
really what I needed. I needed a new understanding. I had to be my own best advocate for my health. Of course, I used to fear going into the doctors, and I know what they were going to say to me. Christine, you need to eat less and move more. I'm like, please tell me something I don't know because I've been trying this same thing for 30 years. So when I got that diagnosis of obstructive sleep apnea, I started being really super curious about the hormones, how my hormone health was working, because sleep is so important, right? And there's a lot of hormonal aspects of it too. And then shortly after that diagnosis, I started having painful ovarian cyst, and so my doctor sent me for an ultrasound, and it was discovered that I had fatty liver disease. And that's really the thing that scared me straight, that I dove down many rabbit holes of learning about my hormone health. And the one thing I wish I had bookmarked this, but I read on some report or some study that sugar is a major hormone disruptor. And so as I began learning all these things, that was the exact education that I needed for myself. Not even in the hospital program that I was in for that protein liquid shake diet, the doctors would tell me I had metabolic syndrome and that I was insulin resistant, but they did not explain to me what that meant. I do not ever remember them telling me that insulin is my fat storing hormone, that I need to get my insulin under control. It was just like eat 800 calories a day and get this weight off and you'll feel better. So, yeah, the education part of it, which is what I kind of geek out on all of that stuff. I'm an accountant by career who totally geeks out on this nutritional science. So that's where I had to begin. And that's what I love passing along to my clients because they don't have time to do this. Like they don't have time to do this. So they're looking at those of us that have had this experience that they want. And I'm just so excited to be able to share everything that I've learned about this nutritional health and healing and what has changed my body for the good, my body, mind, and my spirit for the good. And yeah, so I have a saying with my coaching clients, you do have to learn the science, you can apply the science, and then you change your life. And that's where I started. So,
Yeah, I love that. And
mhm.
I think education is huge because even when people go to their healthcare providers, they often think, "Oh, all the commercials are telling me ask my provider if this diet is right for me." Correct? Well,
Mhm.
when you get there, as a provider myself, I can tell you that we don't get a lot of education. And as a nurse practitioner, I got more than the physicians that I work with. So
Right.
the little bit of nutritional knowledge that we gain from school is not enough to tell you a lot about really anything regarding nutrition, to be honest. Most of my
Mhm.
education was done on my own after
Right.
I was done with my schooling, when I went and I learned more and I was curious and I read more and more and more to figure out what the different types of diets actually look like, what kind of nutrients do our bodies actually need. When I started
Mhm.
my own weight loss journey, gosh, two decades ago now as well, the first thing I did was try to count my calories. And not
Mhm.
all calories are the same. So I'd get to the end of the
Right.
day, I'd have an extra
Yes.
100 calories, and I'm like, I can have a little bowl of ice cream. Hmm, sugar.
Right.
It was not a
Sugar,
good
right?
idea.
Sugar, the major hormone disruptor. Right. Yes.
So
Yeah.
we have our lives revolve so much around sugar now. There's sugar in everything that we eat.
Mhm.
How is it even possible to break up with sugar in our lives?
Yeah, that's another really super important question that we need to ask ourselves. And for me, I learned that the root cause and the root of the women that I have the opportunity to help is the cravings. Like you probably have studied cravings and why does our brain crave the things that we crave? And I learned that when I went down this rabbit hole of new information, I had there was a doctor that I watched a short 5-minute video and he just kind of leaned into the camera and he said, "This is not your fault." And I was like, "What? Me living in obesity for 30 years is not my fault." And so he began to explain how we are in this food environment that is high in ultra processed foods, that is high in sugar, that fat, we eat factory foods all the time and it's just convenience. We're creatures of convenience. And so I had to really learn all of the disruptions that sugar were causing in my life. And I got to the point where I had learned enough and I knew that that was the next very important step that I had to take was what does it look like to eliminate sugar from your life? How is that possible? And honestly, it did take me, as soon as I learned that sugar was a major hormone disruptor, it took me 3 months to get to the point where I could finally wake up one day and say, okay, I am starting my quitting sugar journey. And I just took the first step. I quit coffee cold turkey because I used to love to have a little bit of coffee and a whole lot of flavored creamer. And so I was starting my day out with pure sugar. And that was the first thing I gave up. And then a couple days later, I decided I would no longer eat the candies that were sitting around my corporate office. I worked with a bunch of women, and we always have candy or some kind of treats sitting around on our desk. And then a couple days later, I decided I'm not going to partake in the weekly birthday cake celebrations, so that I eliminated that. So it is a journey. It is possible, but going back to the root of the cravings, physiologically, I'm sure you know this, Mandy, but physiologically, our brains are craving sugar because of our food environment, because of the way we've grown up eating this food. And we've got like this red dog barking at us all the time when we live as sugar burners for fuel. I mean, by fueling our body. When we live as sugar burners, we constantly need that source of fuel. It doesn't sustain very long. Sugar is not a great fuel for our bodies, which is why we constantly need it. So cravings, of course, are very complicated. They're physiological, they're psychological, but I'm so grateful that we can rewire the brain, which I'm sure you could speak to. Please speak to that, what that process looks like in rewiring the brain as we make healthier choices of the food that we're putting in our mouth. We can break up with sugar. We can. I promise you, we
Yeah,
can.
absolutely.
Yes.
So the rewiring happens a lot because of neuroplasticity.
Yes.
That's our fancy term that we use in healthcare is neuroplasticity. You're recreating connections in the brain. And when we get into a habit, so those cravings become habit over time. And
Mhm.
we live on that same thing and it's easy. So we continue to do it. And the more we have it, the more we want it. When we try to go away from it, sometimes we get a withdrawal headache. So it tells people, oh no, my body is telling me, no, I don't really want to give this up. But it's
Mm.
actually almost like a detox that you're getting that headache. So you're getting it out of your body. In order to get rid of those habits, you have to do something to change it. You have to make some sort of cognizant decision that this is what I'm going to do because you have to build a new habit and that habit is not going to build itself. So
Right.
once you go and we often talk about whether or not people reduce their amounts or they go cold turkey and I've seen success with both. Some people do really well when they cut it out of their lives completely. Some do it better when they take little stepwise manners and kind of wean themselves off the sugar, if you will. And both will work. It depends on what kind of structure you need in your own body, but you then have to create that new habit so that that new healthy thing takes its place. So if you're giving up the coffee with all the cream and sugar, I used to joke that I could only drink coffee that didn't taste like coffee. But now I drink more water because water
Yeah.
is really beneficial for us. So replacing
Mhm.
that sugary drink with water, it's not going to taste as good at first, but once you get that sugar out of your system, that water is going to taste really good. And things that have natural sugar taste really good when you're not getting all of those artificial sugars in your body. Because there is natural sugar in our lives.
Mhm.
And our brains do run on glucose, so they do like that sugar, but they don't
Mhm.
like all the processed sugars that we give them.
Yeah. Yeah, I lived in brain fog for all of those years,
Mhm.
and I didn't realize that I was living in brain fog all of those years until it lifted, and I
Yeah.
began having this mental clarity. I remember probably about 2 weeks into when I fully dove in and committed to a ketogenic lifestyle. I remember sitting in the dining room chair just, like, kind of rolling my eyes a little bit and thinking, what in the world is happening to me? I had this amazing surge of energy. I had such mental clarity. At that time, I was still working in my corporate job and I wasn't having afternoon slumps in my office. I didn't need to shut the door and pretend like I was working and I never did that. I never did put my head down on my desk, but everybody knows what that afternoon slump feels like.
Mhm.
And that just, it disappeared. So the brain fog was just that going away is an amazing benefit of me switching from being a glucose burner to being a ketone burner for my source of energy.
Mhm. Mhm. So I think that's a good segue for this. Tell me more about ketogenic. I know we hear the term all the time in mainstream media. They always talk about it. Think about going keto or take these
Mhm.
gummies, which I'm sure are full of sugar to actually get you into a keto diet. So what does that look like for people who might not actually know what the true term is?
Yeah, so basically, it is eliminating the sugar in your diet. Eliminating factory foods, ultra processed foods, no sugars, no grains. Like you might see a hashtag NSNG if you're scrolling around Twitter. That's what that stands for: no sugar, no grains. So what happens when you eliminate the sugar to this level and eat very low carb? I try to stick at under 20 grams of carbs a day, and I get my carbs, for example, from broccoli, Brussels sprouts, things like that. And so under 20 grams of carbs per day really helped me get into that fat burning state because I no longer had this huge surge of glucose in my body that my body needed to burn off. So now my body is creating an alternative energy source in the form of ketones, which most people have heard of ketones because their doctors are checking their urine sticks when they come in to see them to see if they're dropping ketones. Well, in my case, I like to be dropping ketones because that tells me that my body has shifted from burning fuel, sugar for fuel, glucose for fuel, and now I am running on ketones, which is an amazing way to tap into your fat stores. Like you're not going to burn fat, which I needed to burn 100 extra pounds of fat. I wasn't ever able to burn fat because when I was counting calories and, moving more, eating less, I was still eating things that were high in sugar, like whole wheat bread, whole wheat pasta, baked potatoes. I was a huge potato girl. Now, if this Irish girl can give up her potatoes, I challenge anyone to really look at the amount of sugar that you are eating on a daily basis. Ketones are also just, the basic science of it. They're produced in the liver from, there's a process. It's grabbing the stored fat in your body, and then when you're in this state of ketosis, and that's really when you can begin lowering your insulin hormones, which again, insulin is your fat storing hormone. Keeping your carb intake low is going to help you do that. And then thriving on ketones, it really, truly, I really believe that has helped with my brain energy, my brain clarity, my mental clarity, the brain fog, all of that. So that's just a basic explanation of the benefits for me of living in a state of ketosis, because it did allow me, I'm no longer a sugar burner, and instead my body's using ketones for fuel. And that whole process is grabbing that fat and burning it off, which is what I had longed to do for so many years.
Mhm. Mhm. I did do a brief stint with the ketogenic diet a
Mhm.
few years ago now, I guess. And after one of my episodes where I had a lot of stress going on and my weight was going up and down for a while. And not only did I lose 17 pounds in a month, I think that was my bonus of it, but I
Yeah.
felt a lot clearer that month. I had more energy. I kept up with my exercise a whole lot better
Yes.
than I had even prior to that. And it can do amazing things to your body. Now,
Mhm.
I did hear about it recently again because of my TBI that
Yes.
it was recommended that ketogenic diet might be really good for TBI, and I've not had the chance to look into it yet, but you have a story related to that that I think you'd like to share also.
Yeah, my son was in a car accident back in 2017 and didn't know for a couple of years that he was dealing with a TBI because he was a young man at the time. He didn't want to tell his parents how he was struggling, how he was suffering, but there was some very strange things going on, and I needed to get to the bottom of it. And it turns out through, his psychological testing and his brain MRIs that he does have a frontal and temporal lobe brain injury. And from my experience, I know that I had undiagnosed mental health disorders all of those years that I was carrying around obesity. But because I was a type A person and I figured I can handle all the things, like when I did Weight Watchers and that protein liquid shake diet, I followed the program. I was really good, really rigid about never cheating, all of the things. But what I wasn't dealing with also was my mental health at the time. So in hindsight, I see the amazing benefits of how living in ketosis has helped my mental health. Like no more anxiety, no more bouts of depression, no more hopelessness, those types of seasons. I don't get seasonal affect disorder anymore like I used to. So I just really know I've done a lot of research because I really think it would benefit my son and his traumatic brain injury. I follow doctors like Dr. Chris Palmer and Dr. Georgia Eads, both psychiatrists who are really into metabolic health and how keto, living a low carb lifestyle can really help with mental health issues. So super interesting science, and encourage anybody to go check it out if they are caring for anybody with mental health issues or dealing with that. But my son's official diagnosis is mood disorder with the traumatic brain injury. So I really think that the mood disorder could help him. But I also believe that anybody with a traumatic brain injury, I don't have one, so you would have to speak more to this, but I really could see the benefit of living uh, with ketones as your fuel, again, to help that brain clarity. So, and there's so much
Yeah.
more to the science, and it's new and it's emerging. It's amazing the things that I'm seeing as a result of recommending a ketogenic diet for people that are struggling with mental health and traumatic brain injuries. I know there seems like there's always some type of brain fogginess and stuff that goes along with that. So,
Mhm. Absolutely. That part I can absolutely speak to.
okay.
The keto part of it, I definitely need to do more research on it just to
Yeah.
see, because I know I've read a lot about it in the past, and I'd never read on it related to TBI in itself. So it's interesting to hear that you've been trying to do that with your son as well because of that recent recommendation that I have. So definitely more to come on that one. I'm definitely going to be doing some more research myself because it
Yeah.
sounds very fascinating, and just the theory behind how it does help the different mental health disorders.
Mhm.
I suspect there's probably a ton out there. So more to
Yes.
come on that one. Yeah.
Right, exactly. And like I said, it's an emerging study, and people are seeing amazing benefits. They're like, I follow this girl on YouTube who has struggled with schizophrenia for years, and she is on a medically supervised ketogenic diet and is having amazing results.
Mhm.
So,
Mhm. Yeah, nutrition has such a huge connection with our brain. There's
yes.
For years we've known that there's this gut brain connection. So what we put in our body absolutely has an effect on how our brain works, whether it's an injury or mental health disorder. So it's there. The research has been done. So just looking at the distinct connections is going to be a
Yes.
good one. Yeah. So
Yes.
yeah.
Yes. Absolutely. I look forward to hearing your future take on your future research on this.
Yeah, I love when I get these conversations that springed into other conversations as well, because then I can just dig
Yes.
deeper into
Right.
it further,
Right.
and I love that opportunity. So yeah, um, as far as your coaching, do you have any projects or events coming up that you want to share with our listeners today?
Oh yeah, my first book, well, not my first book. My first book related to my lifestyle. This will be my second book actually. My first book is coming out in January of 2025 and I'm so excited. It's called Sugar Freed. Stop losing your weight loss battle, start gaining your victory. And I just share about this amazing experience that I've been through in, choosing proper nutrition to fuel my body, becoming a fat burner, and I'm just so excited to share with people about that. And then also I have a coaching program that's going to works. It's already established. It works hand in hand with the book, and it's called the Sugar Free to Me Weight Loss Solution. And it's a program for women of faith, Christian faith, and we go through the 5 pillars of what I learned that will help them be set free: the food, fasting, feelings, fitness, and it's all by faith. And just super excited about that. Is being able to coach women is just So I never expected to be here. Like I said, I came out of a career of accountancy and now I'm a certified health coach. It's so bizarre, but I have this passion for seeing women set free because they don't have to live like I lived for 30 years. And if I can get that information to them quicker, I mean, that's my passion.
Yeah. Yep. I think when we go through experiences like this, it always feels a passion for us in some way or another. And that's what helps us continue on so passionately with what we
Yes.
do. So for
Yes.
you to congratulations on that upcoming book.
Thank you.
And just congratulations for making that step into a life where you feel that passion and purpose being used. So
Yes. Yes.
that's amazing also.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Right.
Where can people find you if they want to learn more?
Well, I'd love for them to learn more about how to crush their cravings too. So I have a free guide for them. It's called Crush Your Cravings, the Ultimate Wellness Guide for Christian Women. And even if you're not a Christian woman, there are still plenty of excellent tips in there because I go through the physical, emotional, and spiritual aspect of crushing your cravings. And again, like I said, it's the root. It was really, truly the root. I realized I was craving all the wrong things because of the diet environment that we were raised in. And because of my brain, the neuroplasticity, everything that was going on there was saying, feed me sugar, feed me sugar. And I was able to break that cycle. And I want others to do the same. I want them to crush those cravings. I call them my sugar shackles. My sugar shackles are gone. I have ditched them to the sea and I am walking free, and I want that for everybody else too. So if you would love Crush Your Cravings guide, you can get it at crushyourcravingsguide.com.
That's pretty easy. And I
Yes.
assume you're on all the social medias and everything too.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes. Once
I
if
think
they
you.
grab the guide, they can connect with me there, or they can just find me on christinetrimpe.com too, my website.
Perfect. And I'll link those in the show notes also so people can find those easily and not have to write them down while they're driving. I'm sure we
Awesome.
could go on and on all day. Any
Yes.
last words that you'd like to close out on today as we wrap up?
Oh, because of your podcast topic, the brain wellness, it's such a surprising benefit to me on how much clearer I was thinking. My mental game, my positive outlook, I think is truly attributed to my brain health as well, too. And so I encourage anyone to really examine what foods you're putting in your mouth. Are you nourishing your body? And the more sugar you can get out of your lifestyle, out of your choices, the better you're going to feel every single day. So that's my hope and my wish for you.
I love it. Great words to end on. Thank you so much for
Mhm.
being here today, Christine.
Thank you, Mandy.
Thanks for tuning in to this episode of Brain Wellness, the podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, I encourage you to subscribe, like, and share this with others to help me continue on with my mission to help people live healthier, happier lives. Go to www.brainwellnesssolutions.com to see what I'm up to and get links to all the social medias there. See you next time.